Hey, gun people. All right, so I just did that video on San Diego where they where they smell smoke and end up forcing entry and killing this dude. So this is I want to say a 5-page letter, maybe a 6-page letter. One of 9. It's a 9-page letter. And this is from the DA on why he found this. So there's some interesting things in here that I find that I have questions as a detective. If I was reviewing this, these are the questions that I'd be asking. So as I read this, I want to be asking questions that I don't think they answered here and that somebody ought to be asking. We reviewed the reports and material complied by the agency, homicide detective, etc. Okay, here's a summary of what they thought. San Diego police received a call from Darwish neighbor who reported Darwish was walking back and forth in the hallway, cursing, yelling, slamming doors, and he yelled at a female. Okay, so now we have a disorderly conduct call. It's a misdemeanor, not a felony. You can't force injury. You can't force entry, and you can't do much because it's a misdemeanor. So if he's in the house and he shuts the door, unless you got somebody that says they assaulted him or he's a danger, talking loud and cussing isn't a big enough crime to kick a door. So they have no reason to go in this room. Police responded to the condominium and received no response. So they should have cleared. Unable to contact. UTL. Whatever. Clear it and move on. Officers smelled smoke. Okay. According to the fire department witnesses, they did say when they opened it there was no fire, but there was smoke in the place. I still haven't figured out where the smoke started, what was on fire, what was causing the smoke, why they smelt it, etc. But anyway, did they evacuate the apartment? If the place was on smoke, why didn't they evacuate? Why did they just call 2 firemen to open a door? Because on a fire call, if I'm not mistaken, the fire department is the agency that's in charge, not the police. Later, you're going to see the police gave the firemen authority to open the door. Well, last time I checked, fire department doesn't need police authorization to open a door in case of a fire and emergency. So to me, they keep switching back and forth. Is this emergency and is this an exigency they have to enter, or are they just trying to figure out how to work around it? I smell BS throughout this whole thing, but I got to give them a little bit of credit. It may not be as bad as I'm thinking it is. So they sell smoke in a condo, call for fire personnel to assess the situation. Okay, so as a cop, if I think a building's on fire, I don't need to call the fire department before I kick the door and go in to save someone's life. If I think there's a fire and I think someone's in danger, I can kick a door. I don't need permission from anybody, and I don't need a warrant. They didn't do that. Well, Rick, maybe they just didn't know. Okay, yeah, maybe if and buts coconut. Police knocked on the door for 20 minutes. Once again, if I think a place is on fire and I think there's smoke coming and there's an emergency that I need to get in, am I going to wait 20 minutes or I'm going to go in? I think it's BS they waited 20 minutes for the fire to get there. But I'm just pointing out things that doesn't make sense to me. To ensure there was no fire danger, oh, isn't that nice? They waited 20 minutes, but to ensure there was no fire danger, fire personnel forced entry into the home. Wait a minute. First of all, if fire department's forcing entry, why wouldn't they have a whole truck there? They sent 2 probationary employees and a supervisor to this fire call. I don't know how most fire departments work, but normally they send a truck or a squad. I don't know any fire department that just sends out 3 firemen. Hey man, can you go over there and just check and see if there's a fire? Really? That's the way they do it in San Diego? I call BS. Darwish immediately opened fire with a large caliber weapon, striking the officer. They returned fire from the residents. During the ensuing battle, Roman was shot by Darwish. Darwish eventually found deceased, self-inflicting gun vacuum. He was wearing a ballistic vest and armed with unserialized weapon and a homemade unserialized 9mm pistol. The officers were justified in using deadly force to defend against Darwish attempts to kill themselves. Now, that part I agree. Deadly force is authorized because he shot them and they could shoot back. But did they really announce? Some of the witnesses say they did announce. I don't know if they did or they didn't. And if they did announce, what was their reason? What are they saying? Dude, come for us. Call 911. Did they try to call in the apartment and do the phone call? They said when they went in the apartment, it looked like it wasn't furnished. Nobody was living there. They also say that they were at the apartment earlier and didn't contact him and left. Okay? They don't mention anywhere in this report, which is extremely suspicious, that this guy was a focus of an investigation of having unlawful weapons. That's never mentioned by the DA. Either it wasn't turned over to the DA or the DA knew when they did this letter and left it out. But nowhere in this letter does it mention that they were the focus of an investigation and that the terrorism task force run by the FBI tried to get a warrant for this place 10 days earlier. That is not mentioned. Admission or omission of the truth is a lie, and they did not put that in here. So I'm calling big BS, but let's keep going down. I'm going to give them a little bit of credit here in a minute. Okay, the person involved, Darwish, 28 years old, San Diego resident, one-bedroom condominium, been employed, let's see, one officer was employed, police officer for 4 years, the other officer was employed for 3 years. So we got fairly new cops, few years under their belt. Officers responded to the unit a week prior on June 15th. So if this was a week prior, this is only 3 days after their search warrant was denied by the DA's office when they tried to get a search warrant. So 3 days later, they're there on a, reporting party reported Darwish was yelling and possibly fighting and striking a woman who was screaming inside the unit. Police responded. No one answered the door, and the officers cleared. Are you kidding me? I mean, any cop knows that if you're going to a call of a woman being assaulted and screaming, you cannot just leave. You have to make entry and make sure there's nobody being held against their will or was killed. So on this incident, a week earlier, the same agency, San Diego PD, shows up with a woman screaming inside the unit, and because no one answered the door, they cleared the call. What the hell? Are you kidding me? How can people read this with a straight face and not go, man, this don't make no damn sense? The information was cross-referenced with the incident on June 23rd, but the details were not broadcast over the air. So evidently they didn't know that they went there before with a woman screaming. So they can't use that as a reason for making entry. Dozens of law enforcement officers responded to the radio call for assistance broadcast by Boggeman. So this is after they hollered shots fired. The majority of those officers arrived at the shooting at the scene of Darwish stopped firing. Those officers attend to do various tasks. Hiding, yelling, not doing nothing, worrying about an ECP point. That's what they did. Oh, I'm sorry. How did the DA explain it? Various tasks, including perimeter security, SWAT deployment. Wow. Only 3 officers were present during the initial shooting. Boggeman, Roman, and law enforcement witness LE1. Law enforcement witness arrived. Boggeman, Roman request assistant. Law enforcement witness 1 was dispatched to radio call of a male screaming. Information from previous radio call to the same address had been cross-referenced on the officer's data, meaning he was told about it. That information referred to the male and female arguing in the hallway. It appeared the officer had responded earlier, so this officer had been there earlier and had spoken with the male, but no report was taken. So the first time, a week ago, well, let's go back, 10 days ago, they tried to get a warrant because they thought he had guns illegally and the task force was trying to get in his house. 3 days later, they respond to a woman screaming and they do nothing. They knock on the door and leave. Now, earlier in the night, this officer responds and he doesn't take a report or do anything, but he talks to the male. Well, what did the male say? What was the gist of the conversation? Something else they don't mention in here. Or any of these witnesses or any of these person involved in this call at all aware that the task force tried to get a warrant and was refused by the DA's office. Because that's a key piece of information in this investigation, to find out if law enforcement is doing what they're supposed to do or if they're working together to hide and conceal and to drum up evidence in order to circumvent the Fourth Amendment rights of search and seizure. I mean, this thing has so many questions. I'm just like, really? This is your report from the San Diego DA's office? Who freaking wrote this? Ray Charles? Yeah, just tell Ray what to write. He'll type anything. What the? All right. Dispatched the radio call. This is law enforcement 1. Dispatched, informing on previous call. Referred to mail. Okay, no report was taken. LE1 arrived at the location. Boggeman and Roman had already arrived. LE1 walked into the hallway and smelled a strong odor of smoke. Coming from the unit, Boggeman knocked on the door and announced police. Boggeman walked to the back of the alley to see if he could detect the condo interior lights. LE1 continued knocking on the front door and identifying himself as police officer. He knocked on the door for 20 minutes. So, if you wait for 20 minutes, any defense attorney or anybody civilly suing San Diego can say, let me get this straight. You smelled smoke. You didn't think it was emergency enough to kick the door. You didn't think it was emergency enough to do anything, so you just knocked for 20 minutes and waited for the fire department? That's your emergency? Then you got the sergeant to say, yeah, go ahead and open the door. I think we need to get in there. Really? Was the smell stronger or weaker when you made entry? Was it coming under the door or was it getting weaker? Did the smoke alarms go off? If there's so much smoke, how come there's no smoke alarms? Why didn't anybody mention that the smoke alarms were checked and the batteries were taken out? Or this apartment failed to have smoke alarms and that's why there was no... None of that is mentioned in this report. Again, when you read a report and you can ask a bunch of questions, that means the people doing it are either incompetent, sloppy, or they're trying to hide something. All right, let's move on here. Let's see. LE summoned the fire department. Dun, 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 dun. Cancel the banana peel on the highway call. Please respond to the unit for a smell of smoke. To determine if they needed to force entry. Is that why the fire department gets called now? Hey, can we call the fire department and see if they want to force entry? Really? 2 probationary firefighters and their trainer arrived. Really? Were they in a fire truck? Or did they freaking call Uber and get a ride there? The firefighters told the officers they could force entry to make sure there was no danger of the building catching fire. The patrol supervisor authorized entry. Once again, fire department don't need patrol supervision authorization to make entry. That is their call. And if they're forcing entry to make sure everybody's safe, why didn't they call the fire department? Why didn't they have fire trucks standing by? Why weren't they laying hose? Why weren't they checking the fire? Why weren't they evacuating people above and below in case there was a fire? Rick, we don't know why they didn't do that. Well, I do, because they're either incompetent or they were lying and they knew they just wanted to get in because they couldn't get in with a warrant. Okay, the door had 2 deadbolts and no handle. The firefighters forced the door open and immediately stepped aside. If the fire department was entering the door to determine if there was a fire, why did they open it and leave? When was the last time fire department responded and went, hey police, we're just going to kick this door, you guys go on in? That's not standing operating procedure. When you deviate from SOP, there's a reason. Somebody needs to be asking why. Why did you only send 3 units? Why wasn't a smoke alarm going off? Why did you not make entry when you opened the door? And why did you move out of the way and let the cops make entry? And they're going to say, well, shots were fired in BS. When that you see on the body cam, when that fireman opened the door, he had orders to get the hell out of the way and let the cops in. He was breaching that door for the cops to enter. He was not entering that door to see if there was danger in the complex. That's just a flat out lie. The video doesn't match it, and I call BS. Let's see. 2 firefighters forced entry immediately stepped aside. LE1 saw the unit was filled with smoke. Really? Fire alarm going off? He saw a mattress on the floor. Okay. But he did not see anyone inside. LE1 heard a loud explosion. That would have been a gunshot. But didn't think it was a gunshot because it was so loud. LE1 fell on his back and heard gunshots being fired. LE1 could see Boggeman and Roman shooting. LE1 said he never saw Dorish inside the apartment. LE1 instantly went rigid, fell as if he had been tasered. I still don't understand why he did that, whether it was shock of getting hit, pain, whether he was hitting the spine. He fell onto his back and was unable to move. Boggeman and Roman called out to him, urging him to move away from the door. It took several seconds for LE1 to regain feeling into his toes. He managed to roll onto his stomach and still had no feeling in his arms and used his toes to slowly push him forward on the floor. Things started to loosen up. LE1 crawled down the hallway. There was a gun battle taking place as he crawled down the hallway. The video supports this. LE1 could not recall if he had tried to draw his pistol, return fire. He was unable to use full strength of his arm and leg. Boggeman kept telling LE1 to keep moving down, realized Boggeman was firing over his head to return fire on Darwish. Roman was positioned to the left of LE1 and crouched down, returning fire. Boggeman opened the window and got out. Okay, we all saw that in the video. That's easy. What about all those other questions? Equipment on his gun belt prevented him from fitting through the window, causing him to become stuck. Boggeman then went outside, yelled at LE1. Boggeman yelled, both returning fire. Boggeman handled them the shield. Roman shot, yelled. Boggeman's second officer was down. So the guy holding the shield also got shot. Boggeman broadcast over LA, felt horrible because Roman got, what does that have to do in the report? LE1 said he felt horrible because Roman got shot, saving LE1's life when Roman could have easily got out the window. All right, I guess that's it. If that's in a statement, I guess you can put it in there, but that appears to me to just draw attention away from all these other questions. So you think about, oh, these poor officers, they were there just smelling smoke, trying to help people, and suddenly they were shot at, not knowing that a week earlier, FBI tried to get a warrant into the place and they couldn't. LE tried to break the window. Okay, we saw that. It went out head first. Patrol car drove him to the hospital. Law enforcement witness 2. LE2 responded to radio shots fired. He arrived, found firefighters running down the alleyway. Wow, firefighters just ran away. What's up with that? I thought they were risking their lives all the time. What would have been funny is that they were running, they slipped on a banana peel, and then they could have called another fire truck to block the alleyway. But I digress. They pointed to Boggeman, who said, standing outside the window, LE heard gunshots run down, retrieved the shield, ran up, ran back, looked inside the hallway, lying face down on the floor. All this is kind of like what we saw. 8 to 12 gunshots were fired. This is all just justifying the shooting. I get all that. My point is, what the hell were they doing there? Why were they there? Were they illegitimate? And why was things done so haphazardly if they knew this? And if they didn't know it, why didn't they take a report the first time? And why didn't they take a report last time? Why didn't they just leave like they did last time? Well, Rick, they smelled smoke this time. Maybe. I still haven't seen anywhere where the fire department had to put out smoke or it says what was causing the smoke. Nowhere in the report does it say that. Roman kicked out part of the window. Okay, this statement from Officer Roman. Roman had been at the residence in the past to handle noise complaints, so he knew the guy. The previous incident was not eventful because no one answered the door. So this must have been the same officer that went back. On this call, a male standing outside of the condo building unlocked the door and escorted them to Unit 5. The male said to the officers that he had been in that unit on multiple occasions for the same resident. The male then left. Okay, so now we have a male guy that just gave him PC and then left, and we don't know who he is. Roman smelled smoke when he entered the building. Did he pull the fire alarm? Did he try to save people? Did he try to evacuate? Did he immediately call the fire department? No, he did that after they knocked for 20 minutes. Boggeman said the smoke was coming from Unit 5. Damn. He's like a smoke detector. They knocked on the door for a number of minutes before Boggeman called the fire department. LE1 arrived and knocked on the front door, announced himself. The fire department arrived 10 to 15 minutes later. Pretty quick response for the fire department. Once they received, did they run code 3? I'd like to know. I want to know what the call was to the fire department. Hey, you got a couple probationary employees you can send over here, something to break down the door for us? I wonder if that was the call. Or was the call, we need a fire department because we think the building's on fire. And somehow the incompetent fire department says, oh, really? The building's on fire? Hell, we'll just send 2 probationary employees and their trainer over there. Really? Who thinks that call went out as a fire? It didn't go out as a fire. It went out as they wanted some guy to come over and breach the door. Once they arrived, they received permission to breach the door. They don't need permission, as I said before. They knocked on the door again, gave a final warning to the resident. What was the warning? Police were coming in. Is anybody in there? We think there's a fire. What the hell was in the warning? I want to know that. The residents know they were about to breach the door. Firefighter 1 breached the door and stepped off to the side. Why? It was dark inside. It was smoky. Before Smokey's in here? Smokey, you better get your butt back in the garage. Quit screwing off in San Diego. Anyway, I digress. Before they could step inside, Darwish started shooting at them. Mean old Darwish. People kicking in his door, and he decided to defend himself. Roman saw Darwish's face, and he could see he had a beard. The officer retreated. Darwish fired through the wall and struck LE1. Roman saw a red mark go across the top portion of LE1's neck. Roman previously served in the Marine Corps, immediately recognized the sound of Darman's weapons firing. What? He needs to be in a Marine Corps to know what a gun... He's a freaking cop. He had to go through the academy. He's been to the range how many times? What the hell does him having a Marine Corps suddenly made him recognize the sound of a weapon? Really? You need to be in a Marine Corps to know that? Rick, why are you picking on the Marine Corps? I'm not. Freaking government are lying weaselly reports trying to make everybody, oh, he was a Marine, he's a veteran, all. These poor cops are so nice. They smelled smoke and tried to save somebody and were shot. BS. LE1 fell straight on the ground, dropped his gun. Okay, we saw that. He started, he couldn't move. Darwin fired 5 or 6 rounds. Roman tried to drag him. We saw that. Darwish fired again. Okay. Roman saw Darwish poke his head out from the doorway, low to the ground. So this dude was doing a sneak and peek or a quick peek out the doorway, and instead of doing it standing up, he was on the ground. So it sounds like he might have been using some tactics. Also, I think it said Darwish shot him through the wall. I don't know if that was by accident or that was by design. Somebody who's tactically trained will know that cops stack up outside the door, and if you're going to shoot them, all you got to do is shoot through the wall, and you'll hit 3 or 4 dumbass cops standing on the door well. Rick, you can't call them. Shut up, you big dummies. Okay, point his rifle at them, so he got down low. He was in a prone position. Point his rifle at him and fired at him. So he's firing a rifle. Darwin continued shooting, struck Roman underneath the left clavicle. The round ricocheted off Roman's chin. Roman told LE1 he was a bit confused. He returned fire, got up, kicked out the window frame, left. Okay, we saw that. It's more of the shooting. Statement from Officer Boggeman. Responded, radio call. The reporting party told dispatcher that the subject seemed violent. Really? I want to hear the 911 tape. And was behaving erratically in the hallway. The dispatcher informed the officers of the previous incident, including the same subject at the same address. So they knew there was multiple incidents. They didn't mention that. They didn't say we want to go in because of previous incident. They went in because they said they smelled smoke and they thought the building might burn down, so they call 2 probationary firefighters to open the door. Really? Boggeman could not read the information on the previous incident. He was too busy driving to the call. Really? Hell, we got other cops shooting through the window when they're driving the call. This guy can't read his screen? Boggeman was first on site. I said Boogerman. I think maybe it's Boggeman. Whatever. He was greeted by a male who assumed the police were called for the resident in Unit 5. Unit 5. That must be the big problem here. The male commented something about the resident Unit 5 being off his medication again. Oh, so now we have a medication issue. The male then directed Boggeman to the front of the entrance and let them into the building. Roman showed shortly afterward. Boggeman was familiar with the building and popped open the front door with large rocks to allow other LE. Okay, that was smart. He knew that. Why was he expecting more units? He didn't call for more units. He didn't smell smoke yet, but he had the mindset that I better put rocks on the door in case other units come. Was that just good police work? Or was that prior planning of this? The male led Boggeman and Roman to the front door of Unit 5. Boggeman immediately noticed the odor of burning paper. So now we have burning paper. Does that mean like somebody's smoking a cigarette and the paper around the tobacco is burning? Or coming from inside the unit? The front door had no doorknob, just 2 deadbolt locks. Okay? When the LE unit arrived, Boggeman knocked on the door, on the front of the door with his flashlight and announced his presence. But no one... Did he announce his presence? Did he demand entry? What did he say? Why is he announcing his presence? Bang, 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 police. So? I mean, what did he say? Why aren't we getting that video footage? Why did we get the footage only after fire department showed up? Another little question in an investigation. The officers alerted the fire department to access the threat of smoke coming. So the cops obviously couldn't assess the situation and see whether it was dangerous. They needed the fire department to come. Boggeman walked outside to get a look at the exterior of the building. to ascertain if there were flames or other signs of burning inside the unit. But he did not see any obvious flames and returned to the hallway. So there wasn't smoke pouring out the window. Again, no fire alarms going off. Nobody pulled the fire alarm. Nobody evacuated anybody for their safety because they were so concerned about the occupant's safety. Not consistent, not reasonable. LE1 continued knocking on the door, asking the resident, no answer, or asking them to answer. Boggeman estimated the officer knocked on the door about 30 times. Why didn't you leave like the last time? Last time you had a woman screaming. I bet they didn't knock 30 times. Why didn't you leave like them? Why didn't you pull the fire alarm? Okay, Jesus. Boggeman met the firefighters outside and guide them in. Boggeman explained the situation to better prepare the firefighters of the potential threat. What's the threat? The threat of fire? Or the threat of a guy won't answer a door because somebody said he was yelling? You're going to force entry on a complaint that he was yelling in the hallway. You're going to force entry and warn the police department or the fire department of the threat. Yet last week when you responded to a woman screaming for help, you knocked on the door and you left. Really? The firefighters equipped themselves with full fire gear, breaching tools, and an instrument to detect the heat from the door of the condo. The firefighters determined there was no active fire. Ooh, that's a nice little piece of information. If there's no active fire, where's the exigency to enter? What was the emergency to circumvent a warrant? Remember, there's only 3 ways you get in somebody's place: warrant, consent, or exigency. They couldn't get a warrant because they tried. They didn't get consent because nobody answered. So the only way left was exigency. Ooh, I smell smoke. But something inside was producing smoke. Boggeman's supervisor gave permission to force entry and to order a check the welfare of the occupants. Again, if we're going to check his welfare, why aren't we checking the other residents? Why aren't we evacuating people? Why don't we have full fire department response for a possible fire in a building if we're so concerned about the welfare of the occupants? Because we're only concerned about the occupant and the door that we couldn't get a warrant on that we want to get in. That's why. LE1 gave a few more announcements at the front door. Boggeman formulated an entry plan. Really? You got an entry plan when you got a fire and possible smoke? I thought the fire department did that. Don't the fire department say, hey, if there's a fire in a building, nobody can go in, everybody's got to stay out? This is our call, it's too dangerous? That didn't happen here. Boggeman second and Roman would enter last. The firefighters breached the door. Why? Because they're firefighters. And there was smoke. And they were briefed about the threat. And they were told to get the hell out of the way so they could go in and make an entry. Really? Okay. All over smoke? Wow. But before LE1 could take a full step inside, the officer received gunfire from inside. Boggeman saw flashes, heard pops, and was quickly realized it was gunfire. Boggeman retreated down the hallway with 2 of the firefighters. Was he running down the alley too with the 2 firefighters? All right. Boggeman fired his pistol through the wall towards the original origin of the gunfire and Unit 5. He saw LE1 go down, but did not see what caused him to fall. Roman was crouched down next to LE1. The gunfire penetrated the wall, landing a couple feet of the officers and firefighters. It was slow but continuous fire. Boggeman estimated Darwish fired about 20 to 30 rounds at this point. I'm not sure he fired that many rounds during the whole thing, but anyway. Boggeman fired and emptied and reloaded, standing in the hallway. Both the firefighters crawled out the window at the end of the hallway. LE1 managed to crawl toward Boggeman at the end of Roman, stayed with LE1. The 3 officers trapped at the end of the corridor and knocked on the doors. Oh, by the way, back to them leaving the door. If officers are getting shot and the door is locked, guess what? We break the door, we shoot it off the hinges, we tie something with the car, we ram it. I don't know if I've ever propped a door open for other officers to come when I'm on a call. But anyway, I digress. Boggeman looked at the door on the east of residence and received no response, couldn't get in. Also, he knocked on another door saying, hey, let me in. The people inside said, hell no, we're not letting you in. That's funny. Boggeman squeezed through the window and climbed up the balcony adjacent to the window. He hung over the edge, provided LE1 10 to 20 feet drop. he had a clear view of Darwish's front door. Darwish poked his head out of the front door and fired down the hallway at them. Boggeman heard other police units approaching behind him, requested a rifle and a shield. The first unit arrived providing a shield. Nobody gave him a rifle. Boggeman pushed through the window. As soon as they set room shield up, Darwin started firing. Boggeman fired. Okay, reholstered his pistol, aimed at the door, head out again. Boggeman fired the shotgun. Boggeman believed he shot Darwish in the head with the shotgun, but wasn't sure. I think he did. I think the coroner report did say he was shot with a shotgun, but he put the gun in his head and killed himself. Roman was able to kick out the window. We saw that. SWAT units helped him outside. Members of the fire station were dispatched. Dispatched to what? To Darwish condo building regarding a smell of smoke. Okay. So you just send 2 probation officers when you get a smell of smoke? Normally, the fire department can't wait to send every freaking truck to every call with their lights blaring, running red lights, driving like maniacs. For some reason, on this case, they decided to send 2 probationary employees. Doesn't pass the smell test, even a smell of smoke test. Police officers directed them, Unit 5, okay? They worked on the door, forced entry. Let's see, occupant. The officers on scene were waiting for approval from the sergeant to have the fire department force entry. I'm not sure when you started using the fire department to force entry, but I like the idea. If it was up to me, I'd have fire department always force entry. Yo, man, y'all go open that door. We're going to stand back here with our guns. Go up there and be a fool and go ahead and force that door open. What the hell? Occupants had a history of mental health. Really? We're just finding this out? The officers told him this. Wasn't mentioned anywhere else. We had one guy say he was off his meds. I never heard one officer say something about he had mental health issues. 2 officers then entered the unit with their handguns drawn. They saw rounds fired. They heard 8, 9. Okay, everybody. Now they're just getting into the statements, everybody. Statement of firefighter witness. The officers had seen were knocking on the door, attempting to speak with the occupants. They don't know if there were any occupants. They didn't receive a response, so officer told him there was history of mental health related issues. Oh, so they entered because of mental health related issues, not because of the smoke, because that's what they told the fire department. Fire department smelled smoke in the hallway outside Unit 5. The officer stood by for 10 to 15 minutes waiting for the officer to knock on the door. One of the officers walked around the building to see if anybody was inside the unit, reported that the blinds were closed, but lights were on inside. One of the officers said he received permission to force entry. So the officer received permission, but they had the fire department do it. The door came most of the way open. There were lights on inside. Readjusted the entry tools. Second attempt, opened the door. Fire department stepped back. First officer entered. As soon as the LE crossed the threshold, he was met with gunfire. This was a police entry and not a fire department smoke entry. The way I read this, everybody can have their own opinion on this. It appeared the unit was under construction. It did not look like it was a furnished unit. He saw the door leaned up against the wall. He believed 9 or 10 gunshots rang out, blah, 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 knocked on the door. However, he stepped in the hallway, the gunfire resumed. Civilian witness. Let's see what, all I'm worried about the first part. Was present during the incidents. They were not involved in the breaching of the door. Their statements were consistent. They just said it was consistent. So they didn't really put the witness statement in here. Let's see where we get next. Autopsy. Deputy Medical Examiner Robert conducted an autopsy on Darwish. Darwish sustained a fatal close-range discharge gunshot wound to the head, the gunshot wound to his chin, and a gunshot wound to his right forearm. Determined the cause of death was, what is that? Profiated? I'm not sure what that, gunshot wound to the head, and the manner of death was suicide. So none of the officers could have took his hand and put it to his chin and pulled the trigger. Of course not, Rick. Then it wouldn't be suicide. Toxicological test that Darwin's blood revealed the presence of cannabis. Ooh, big marijuana smokers. All you people want to legalize marijuana. See what it makes you do? Makes you shoot at the mean firemen and the mean cops trying to come in and help you because they smell smoke. The review was conducted pursuant to joint protocol between the Office of San Diego law enforcement agencies called as Trinity, blah, 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 blah. Provided independent analysis determined the shooting was legally justified. Under California law, this is pretty much where they just say the law. Officers are allowed to defend themselves, objectively reasonable, rapidly evolving situation, tense, uncertain, rapidly evolving, amount of force necessary, blah, 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 blah. Conclusion. The officers involved responded to a male yelling and creating a disturbance. Upon arrival, they smelled smoke coming from the unit. After extensive knocking and announcing their presence, they forced entry with the assistance of fire department to check the welfare of the occupants and determine whether the smoke was a danger to the residents of the complex. Wow, that almost sounds like legal justification for entry. Darwish opened fire immediately. A higher crowd, despite being assaulted by Darwish's tactical advantage, superior firepower, Roman and Boggeman maintained concentrated suppressive fire, keeping Darwish at bay and striking him several times until Darwish killed himself. Based on these circumstances, the officers bear no state criminal liability for their actions. Case closed. No mention of FBI trying to get a warrant. No mention of who knew about the warrant. No mention whether this place was still under surveillance by the FBI task force. Who knew what? Man, look, if the officers didn't know anything about the FBI trying to get a warrant, then I'm a little bit better with this. But for them not to, I know if I was doing a warrant and I thought a guy had weapons, I would put on the resident history of that address, suspect is involved with the task force. Any contact with this suspect, contact our task force and let us know. We suspect this person of having unlawful weapons, possibly mental illness, possibly on drugs, and we want to know anytime you contact this person. That's normally when you focus on somebody for an investigation, you're trying to get a warrant. That's what you do. You put a little note in their resident history. So anytime any officer gets called there, they know. Just like if that person had AIDS. As soon as the officer was dispatched, there would be a little note, caution, suspect has AIDS, or biological warning, or biological hazard, since you can't say AIDS because somebody complained that it's not fair. So they would put some code so officers knew you were responding to a guy with AIDS. They do the same thing when they think somebody's a gang member and they're armed, or if they're involved in crime, or if they're the focus of an investigation. None of that was mentioned. I think this is BS. I think California Attorney General ought to be investigating this, but they won't. And whatever these cops did, know now, hey, you know what? It worked last time. Let's do it again. I call BS. All right, take it for what it's worth. I'll put a link to this in the description.